Welcome, everybody, to Baumhauer's Victory Grill here in Tuscaloosa. So happy to have you with us. Eli Gold, joined by our media guest from whom you've already heard, Dusty Dvoracek, and the head coach of the Crimson Tide, Nick Saban, who I'm just guessing you're probably happier sitting next to Dusty than seeing him on the gridiron like we have over the years. This guy was all-conference and all-America at the University of Oklahoma.
Yeah, he was a great player. I remember him in 2003. I think we played in a national championship game.
Yep.
I'm not saying anything about
how the
outcomes or how the game went or anything. I'm just telling you we had a lot of respect for him as a player. He had a great career, and love it that he's here.
They kicked our butt is what happened. That's the truth. They kicked our butt. He had an unbelievable defense, and it was a heck of a ball game. Coach, thanks so much for having me. How about this event, man? This is awesome. You got quite the crowd here tonight.
Yeah, it's great. I'm glad to see the energy and enthusiasm and excitement that everybody has for this game. It's homecoming. It's a big game for us, and I've been trying to tell our players, it's only natural for everybody to, when you have a big win, especially in a tough place on the road like we had last week, that you don't sort of lose your energy a little bit and enthusiasm in terms of the preparation the next week. It's been a work in progress this week, I think, to get the guys back, to get them where they need to be. But they were pretty good today, so hopefully we'll be able to carry that on.
I had a chance to go to practice today. You were fired up. Your coach were fired up. It seemed like you guys were bringing the energy. And what I noticed, the players, they were really responding. I thought you guys had a heck of a practice today.
Yeah, well, Thursday is, we want to put it all together. So, you do certain things on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then on Thursday it's kind of a mixture of all the things that you've done all week, and you want to see the players be able to execute it, play the game like it's a game. We have that noise going on in there, so it makes it hard for them to communicate. But I thought they were much better today from an energy standpoint and a focus standpoint. Poise, confidence, and execution. That's the thing that I was preaching last week, before we played A&M. Playing on the road, it's going to be loud, going to be noisy, and all that. And if you look at the game, the plays that we made were made because we had poise, and we played with confidence, and we executed well. And then some of the miscues that we had were also, we had 9 pre-snap penalties on offense. All right, so that's kind of a lack of poise. And then we had 2 personal fouls. So we had 11 penalties that were completely all about poise and all about being able to focus your emotions on what you need to do to execute and do your job. So hopefully we can build on that, and hopefully we learn some lessons from it that'll be beneficial to us in the future.
Dusty, when you sat down, you said, I went to practice, and my Lord, it was noisy in there today. Was that not the case at Oklahoma? Did they not pipe in artificial noise?
We piped in some, but not like that. And I think that obviously you're trying to create that environment, right? That sense of chaos, and you guys still be able to operate at a high level. I thought it was awesome because I could barely sit there. I'm talking to Tom Luganbill, and we can barely discuss anything. And I'm sitting out there watching these coaches coach up the players and make corrections on the fly. So I think if you can operate in that environment, boy, it makes game day that much easier.
Right, and we used to do that when we played on the road for the offense. Because the other people are going to cheer when the offense is out there. Well, I'm over here every Thursday night when we play at home trying to get the fans to make noise when the other team has the ball. So It creates problems for them. But little did I realize that it creates problems for the defensive players.
Right.
All right, because they're used to saying, we're playing sky, we're checking to B-gap blitz or whatever it is, and they can't hear because the crowd's affecting the offense, but it's also affecting the defense. So when we play at home now, we have the noise for the defense. So they have to use hand signals. Everybody's got to be able to get the signal from the sidelines. And the communication, if you do the evaluation of the communication of mistakes and errors that are made in games, it's always the cornerback and the safety away from your bench. They can't see through all the players to see the signal. And that's one of the things, even when people go fast, when they go fastball, that it's tough to get everything communicated across the field. So when we have players use hand signals and not rely on verbal, I think that translates so much better for players.
When did you realize that? Because to your point, it's typically when you go on the road. Like we never at home, but it makes so much sense the way you explain it. When did you come to that realization? You know what? We need to start doing this regardless of where we're playing because of exactly what you talked about, that communication aspect of the defensive side.
I think it was probably 12 or 13, back in 2012, 2013. We have great environment when we play at home, and we have great enthusiasm, great noise. People really do affect the offensive team. And I started to see us, especially when we're playing against fastball teams, we were having trouble communicating the defenses fast enough to the players, and the offense is going fast, and we can't get lined up, and we got guys that don't even know what the call is. So that's when we started implementing the noise and the hand signals and making everybody nonverbal.
We're welcoming you in to the Nick Saban Show. If you're just joining us, our friends at Alpha continuing to protect your cars, home, life, and business as the proud sponsor of the Nick Saban Show. Tonight's first phone call question is coming your way by virtue of Alabama 811. To help prevent injuries, outages, and loss of life, call 811 or visit alabama811.com before you dig. It's free, it's simple, and it is the law. Let's go to the phones. Pee-wee is in Grand Bay, Alabama. Hello, Pee-wee. How are you?
I'm doing fine, Eli. Coach, how are you, sir?
I'm doing fine. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Coach, halfway through the season, at the beginning of the season, you talked about that you wanted to try to build depth for the offensive line, and I'm just wondering, halfway through the season, has that progressed like you had liked to it, seen it done, and how important is that going to be for the rest of the season?
Well, I think it's paramount, to the rest of the season that we can continue to make progress and improve, in the offensive line. And I think a lot of it is fundamentals. The two most important things, I think, when you play in the offensive line is, you always talk about get your second step on the ground. Well, when you take short steps and get your second step on the ground, you're always in a power position, and you always have good balance and body control. When you don't stay square and you don't get your second step on the ground, you tend to get overextended, you bend at the waist, you don't have very good power, and you don't have very good balance, body control. And then the second thing that's the most important is hand placement. If you watch football, the guy that gets his hands inside, I don't care if they're blocking on the perimeter on a DB, or if you're playing offensive tackle or offensive guard. If you get your hands inside on the guy, that's where you can really kind of steer a guy and push-pull to get movement on the guy, but also control the block. When he gets his hands inside, then he can throw you and get off of blocks, and it makes it tough to finish. So I would say if I had to point to one thing, that's probably I guess it's two things that we really need to get more consistent at, because there are times when we do it extremely well and have really good success, and there are times when we're not doing that, especially with some of our younger players, and it really creates issues and problems for them to finish, blocks. And even last week when we struggled to run the ball, there were numerous occasions that we had a hole, and if we would have just finished the block and pressed like we were supposed to, that we would have had more positive runs. So, but those fundamentals are really paramount in being able to finish. And, the pass protection issues, were mostly on third down last week. And, A&M's got a good pressure package. They didn't really pressure us any way that we didn't practice. But it goes back to that same poise, confidence, and execution. We make an out call because they're bringing a guy off and on a pop stun inside, and we're supposed to be 3 for 3. Tackle doesn't go out, quarterback gets smacked. That's poise and confidence in believing and trusting in what we're calling, what we're doing, and how we're all working together to get things picked up. So, and hey, Arkansas's got a good defense. They got a good front seven. They got big guys. They'll put pressure on you too. And we just have to do a better job of playing together and having confidence in what we're supposed to do and execute together as a group. Because, people until last week said, hey, Alabama can't really throw the ball. I heard that, a lot of times. But we can, and Jalen can, and we've got good receivers, and we can make plays in the passing game. Now, if we could get the running game established like we had earlier in the season and be able to do some of these things in the passing game, then I think would be a much more effective offense because we'd have much greater balance. But that's going to start with the fundamentals up front.
I love that you said that, Coach. So I coach my son's 11U football team, and we just had a game the other night. My offensive line's been struggling, and it's funny because even at the youngest of age, I'm always talking about hand placement inside and how important, and typically elbows in, thumbs up, palms up, and if you can get the inside track, more times than not, if you get inside of them, you're going to be able to win. It's amazing that all the way back, you talk about the fundamentals of football, it starts at a very young age, but it never really changes all the way up to the highest of levels.
Right, and it's the same thing when you're playing defense. You're always trying to tell the defensive player, get your hands inside, because that's going to create an advantage for you in leverage, but it's also going to create an advantage for you in disengaging. And you see defensive players, they're like this, and they get punched in the chest, and it usually doesn't work out too good.
Folks, if you want to join the conversation, feel free. The phone lines are open at 877-202-BAMA. That is the Yellowhammer Brewing Hotline. And feel free to hop on board and be part of the conversation. We're coming right back with the coach, with Dusty, and with you here on the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield.
Formation, Johnson looking, pressure coming up the middle, back pedals, throws. That one is almost picked off. It was picked off. Caleb Downs, his second interception of the year, and Bama takes it over at the Aggie 39-yard line.
Welcome back, everybody, as we continue from Baumhauer's Victory Grill. We're here in Tuscaloosa. We're glad to have you with us. Hey, Coach, and the Nick Saban Show are presented by Alpha Insurance. Protect your car's home, life, and business with Alpha. Our special media guest tonight is Dusty Dvoracek, ESPN college football analyst, who's got an outstanding resume, both on the air and from his playing days, both in the NFL and at the University of Oklahoma. And Dusty, the coach, has rejoined us, so why don't you jump on in with another question?
Well, since he just mentioned University of Oklahoma, I know this isn't this specific, but how exciting is it next season? I know you like to live in the now, but Oklahoma and Texas coming to the SEC. How much does that fire you up, Coach?
Well, I think it's great for the SEC. I think it's great for the fans. I think that one of the things that I really like about the way we've expanded our conference is we did not change the geographic footprint, for our fans and for the people. We had two, really quality programs and great teams with great fan base and traditions, but we didn't really change the footprint of, the conference. So it's not going to be inconvenient at all for, the competition of the players or the fans to be able to stay engaged in what's happening in the league. And, the way we're going to, do our 7-team, one-team,
rotation,
7-team rotation, one team fixed. I think you're going to play everybody every 4 years. So almost every guy at your school is going to get to play every team in the conference, which I think is great as well.
Yeah. Coach, our first question from the Nick Saban Show readers on AL.com comes from Bill in Citronelle, Alabama. It says, hey, Coach, the team and the younger players continue, at least to my eyes, to improve each week. Can you comment on the experience gained by winning tough SEC games on the road? Thank you, and roll Tide.
Well, I think the biggest thing about our team so far is, and the thing I like about our team, and this is not something that is easily instilled, is our team has really shown great resiliency, in terms of their ability to overcome adversity, and continue to stay focused and continue to play in games in tough situations and make, plays in critical situations in the game that really impact and affect the outcome of the game. We still have a few lapses in the game that, we want to try to avoid having and staying focused completely for 60 minutes in a game. Just like the one series we had last week in a critical time in the game. We're going on defense. We're playing great on defense. They only scored 3 points in the whole second half. But to get those 3 points, we go penalty, big play to the 2-yard line. And then, stopped them, and they kicked a field goal to make it 26-20. And then after that, we played great. We played great before that. So those little things that happen in games you want to make the other team beat you. You don't want to give them anything, and we don't want any of our players to do anything that gives the other team an opportunity and advantage, because they got good players too, so they're going to make some plays even when you're playing your best. So you certainly don't want to do anything that's going to help them. But our guys have showed tremendous resiliency to overcome adversity, stay together as a group, and stay positive and not show their frustrations when things don't go well. I mean, we had lots of opportunities in the last game to, get frustrated and whatever. We're having trouble with the snap count. We're going on silent. They're stemming and moving. Their fans are going crazy. It's hard to hear, so that's why we were going on silent. Tried to help the center, which it did help him, but we had 9 false starts in the game. Well, people could have got disappointed, frustrated. Everybody just kept playing, and that's what it takes, I think, to be able to have great victories. You got to be able to overcome adversity. And I think that's what this team has demonstrated most, and the young players are starting to figure that out as well. And, the message that I try to give to young players, and I guess it would be good for everyone, because, some of the kids, they don't quite get it, that, every day and everything that you do, you're auditioning for a bigger role. And you're being evaluated as such, whether you're frustrated that you're not getting enough playing time, but yet the things that you're doing, because you're auditioning in practice to get playing time. So then you play 10 plays in the game. Those 10 plays are an audition for you to get a bigger role in the next game. But yet everybody gets frustrated when things aren't going the way they want them to go. So instead of thinking about what's happening now and how do I create a bigger role for myself in the future by doing things correctly and playing to my best, I'm over here frustrated and pouting because things aren't going the way I want them to go. Well, I would say that's important for anybody. I mean, if you're a movie star, you have to audition for a part. Well, you have to do it good. You have to do it well. Mm-hmm. Or you don't get the part. And just because you got the last part don't mean you're going to get the next part unless you do it well. So I just think that with our young guys, that's what we're really trying to emphasize to them, that they can make contribution. They do have ability, but they have to look at it like, and I'm talking about selfishly for themselves, that they got to keep doing a good job so that they improve their role in terms of how big their role is.
One thing that stood out to me, Coach, and I know that maybe the fourth quarter against Texas didn't go the way you wanted, but Ole Miss, second half, last week's second half, you guys took it to another level. You come out of halftime and talking about facing adversity and your team stepping up to that challenge. Just how proud of that fact of this team have you been, the way you guys have performed in the second half on the road at Ole Miss and then even on the road last week with you guys there in College Station?
I think that's the very, very thing that I'm talking about. We're behind 7-6 against Ole Miss at halftime and, win the game like 18-6 in the second half. And we're behind in this game and, win the game in the second half. So, I don't know, what was it, 20-3 or something, or 17-3 or whatever. But I think that's a tribute to the kind of competitive spirit that you have on your team and your team's ability to stay focused and overcome adversity and play well when their best is needed.
Let's go to the phones again, gentlemen. Harrison joins us from Florence, Alabama. Hello, Harrison. Welcome to the Nick Saban Show.
Thank you, Eli. How are you tonight, Coach?
Good, Harrison. How are you?
I'm doing great. After our game last week against Texas A&M, I was able to watch a lot of the Arkansas game that came on afterwards. And one of the things I noticed about KJ Jefferson is he's a very talented quarterback, but just from my perspective in the first half, he really put Arkansas behind the sticks because he tried to do too much, in my opinion. I was curious, when you see a quarterback that's trying to do too much and not really taking what the defense gives, how do you use that to your advantage? How do you train your defense to sense that, and how do you use that to your advantage in the middle of the game?
Well, that's your opinion of KJ Jefferson. My opinion of him is he's very capable of making some great plays. He's a big guy. He's very hard to sack. He's a powerful runner. He's hard to get on the ground. He's got a great arm. He's very accurate with the ball, and he makes big plays down the field because in his scrambling and breaking down the defense, he has consistently made plays for several years now. All right, so I guess as a coach, I've never ever viewed him relative to your opinion about what kind of player he is. You know, he does so much for their team, and he's capable of doing so much, and he's had so much success there. I guess as a coach, I worry about what we have to do with our team to try to contain him so that he doesn't have opportunities to make some of these plays that he's capable of making by scrambling, by running, by quarterback runs, and by throwing the deep ball extremely well, which is one of his greatest assets. So I can't answer your question because I don't really view the player that way. But if we have a player that I think is not focusing the right way on how he needs to do his job, I think the analogy that I used about, you know, the quarterback being a point guard and not a shooting guard probably is the approach that I would use with any player. So your job is to distribute the ball. It's not necessarily to score 35 points. So you don't have to make every play, and I would be talking to players on our team, all right, but you have to make the right decisions and get the ball to the right people so that everybody has an opportunity to make plays within the system of, you know, what you're supposed to do. And, you know, that's the one thing that I think our quarterback, Jalen, has gotten better and better at each week, and I think he's having more and more success because of it.
With mobile quarterbacks, what do you guys do in particular? You did a great job with Jackson Dart. You're going to face another one in KJ Jefferson. Anything Coach Roach or you guys do as a defensive line for that scramble drill, or even design quarterback run with what they're going to do? They run that little sweep to the boundary. They're going to run some quarterback counter. Anything in particular that you guys really hone in on when you're facing a quarterback that's got a skill set like KJ Jefferson?
Right. Well, it's really, really hard because when you got a quarterback that runs quarterback runs, you're always one short because that means they have one more blocker. So every defense that you have, all right, is that they got a guy carrying the ball, they got a guy handing the ball off. Well, now they got a guy blocking and a guy carrying it. They don't have a guy handing it off. All right, so you got to be +1 on defense some kind of way from some place. So if you're playing middle of the field coverage, the middle of the field safety's got to be able to read the quarterback runs and be the +1 player. If you're playing split safeties, you got to get the safeties out of the top to do the same thing. But they also have really good play action passes, so you got to have great discipline, eye control, to be able to read these things, or you have problems. Now, when it comes to scrabbling, you know, people do all kind of stuff. You know, people are doing it to Jalen now, where, you know, they look like they're rushing 4 guys, but they're really rushing 3 guys, and they got 1 guy spying the quarterback, or they're rushing 4 guys, and they got a 5th guy spying a quarterback. And that's one of the things that, you know, Jalen's got to grow into, and we talked about it again today, is, you know, he flushes out of the pocket, and he thinks he's going to be able to run, and all of a sudden this linebacker comes scraping out of nowhere. Well, that was the spy guy. All right, and he's like, what do I do next? Well, you know, you got to throw the ball away if you don't have a play down the field because, or you don't have open field. So these are all learning experiences that I think you have to go through, but they're all techniques that when you play against running quarterbacks, especially when you play man-to-man coverage and people are going to turn their backs and run, you know, the quarterback breaks out, there's nobody looking at him. It's tough. So you got to be able to have spies on the guy.
You know, one thing you do have is a gentleman in the person of Will Rader. He is now 1 point away from the SEC all-time scoring record, and he is 50 points away from the NCAA all-time scoring record. What a luxury when you can call upon a gentleman who more often than not is going to convert for you from anywhere.
Well, Will Rader is, I mean, he's fantastic. You know, people, to have really good specialists on your team is a tremendous asset. You know, people that you can depend on in the clutch. And, you know, people don't even realize, they talk about field goals and extra point, but, you know, kickoff and kickoff placement and putting the ball the right place so your coverage patterns are going to, you know, be most effective. And, you know, Will does all that stuff extremely well. I mean, he's very accurate. He's got a strong leg. And what a great person. Just you couldn't find someone who's a better guy, more committed to trying to be the best that he can be in everything that he does. The kind of person he is, kind of student he is, He is outstanding as a football player, as a kicker, no doubt.
Yeah, he had those 4 punts last week. Do you like to see the field goal guy have to punt? Is the style difference a problem?
No, it really isn't. I mean, it could be a problem for some guys. It's not a problem for Will. And, I made a comment. Gary Danielson was asking me about, Smith, their punt returner. And I said, one of my biggest worries in the game is James will out-kick his coverage. So he kicks it on the 40-yard return, 63 yards with a 4.6 hang, which is not – if you're going to kick it 63 yards, you need to hang it up there longer than that. So we missed 6 tackles on it, but, he had too much space to make people miss to start with. And he had 0 return yards when Will was punting.
Yeah.
Because Will's not going to punt at 63 yards. He's going to punt 40, 42. It's going to have hang time, and when the ball comes down, there's going to be 4 guys standing around the guy. So I hated to see James get hurt.
Yeah.
But I felt a little better about covering the punts when Will was punting against that guy.
And that's why folks tune into this show. You get all the behind-the-scenes thinking from Coach Nick Saban. We are coming right back. I want to talk about Caleb Downs, talented safety. We'll discuss him and a whole lot more. So don't go away. You're listening to Hey Coach on the Nick Saban Show from the Crimson Tide Sports Network on Learfield.
Stepping up with the play clock now at 4, at 3, waiting on the snap at 1. They just get it off in time. Fires, quick slant. Burton, 10, 5, the end zone. Touchdown, Alabama. Jermaine Burton on the 19-yard reception and run after the strike from Jalen Milroe. And Bama is back on top.
Burton and Isaiah Bond and a number of other guys becoming the go-to receivers for quarterback Jalen Milroe as we welcome you back. This segment of the Nick Saban Show brought to you by Coca-Cola Zero Sugar. With zero sugar and refreshingly delicious, is Coca-Cola Zero Sugar the best Coke ever? Find out for yourself. Dusty, another question for the coach?
I do. So watching tape, Coach, to Caleb Downs, he just jumps off the tape. And he's obviously a really highly recruited guy. You probably knew you were getting a good player. But what has impressed you the most about him? And something tells me it's not even something I see on the film.
Well, I think what impresses me most about Caleb Downs is his maturity. He's a very instinctive football player, but this guy there's no arrogance about him being one of the best players in the country at his position. He's very focused. He's very coachable. He wants to know everything that you can ever tell him about how he could play his position better. When he takes coaching well, when you talk to him about what he did or didn't do, he wants to completely understand the whole defense, not just what he's supposed to do, so he knows exactly how he fits. For a guy that's a freshman, man, that's really, really unusual. And he's been a really, really solid player for us. He plays really well. He's got a lot of production. I think he's only going to get better and better.
Just seems like he's about the right stuff. It's what it looks like. I'm curious because you guys don't have some basic defense. How rare is that at that position to be able to step in, to be able to take in all that information and be able to go out and play at that level?
Yeah, well, you said it. He's got the right stuff. There's no doubt about that. A good leadership, sets a good example. People say that we have a complicated defense, but I don't know that it's that complicated. I think the one thing that we do that is new for players, and I don't want to, belabor the audience with this, but, you got really 3 ways that you can play coverage. You can play cat coverage, which means you got this cat, I got that cat. It's man-to-man. So as long as your cats are better than their cats, you're good. All right, and then you got zone coverage, which means we're going to drop to an area and break on the ball. And when Dan Marino's throwing it, that breaking on the ball gets kind of overrated because it gets there quick and you don't have a lot of time. And then you have the third concept, which is, kind of pattern match man after the pattern distribution. All right, so now things can get a little bit complicated because now it's not before the snap, who do you have? It's after they start doing all their stuff. And that's probably a way that you can play effectively and not put as much pressure on a guy to have to cover a guy. And all the crossing routes, aren't an issue like they are when you're playing regular man-to-man. And you can get a little closer to them and still deny the ball without just playing, zone defense where you have to break on the ball. So that's the one thing that we probably do, which I think it's important for players' development, that they learn how to do that. Because the concept of doing that is something that really helps them at the next level. And I think, I don't know, we've had 30-some defensive backs drafted out of here since we've been here, and a lot of them make it, and they make it for a long time. And I think their background in all these coverage concepts is probably very helpful to them.
Plus, in the case of Caleb, his daddy played in the NFL. His uncle was an all-pro. His brother plays at Carolina. I got to guess when you're brought up in that environment, you're like a sponge. You just learn just by being around.
And I hate to say this because it's no disrespect to Dad.
Yeah.
But if I was going to hire somebody to be a coach, Mom.
Really?
She knows her ball now. She is on top of it. And she's on him. And it's comical to me. And Caleb's dad was a great player, and he's a good coach.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, his mom is right on top of it.
There you go. Let's go to the phones and head down to Loxley, Alabama. Chris, welcome to the show. Hello.
Roll Tide, Coach.
Roll Tide, buddy. How you doing?
Well, I'm doing all right, but I got something that's been kind of bothering me all week. And we have the greatest fan base in the world, bar none. However, and we've run into this with them before, and I'm not saying it's the majority of them, but I'm hearing it too much on the street, on the radio, whatnot. It's, hey, man, how you think we'll do against Georgia? Hey, what do you think we'll do against LSU? I ain't heard a dadgum one of them mention Arkansas. Listen, Arkansas is the most dangerous team we'll probably face all year. They've lost, 3 or 4 games in a dadblame road. They're a good football team. 2 years ago, they come within a gnat's ass of beating us in Tuscaloosa. So, point out, I mean, I know you've been talking about how good KJ Jefferson is probably one of, if not the best quarterback we'll face all year.
I agree with you, and I like your gnat's ass analogy. I think there's a couple things that everyone should realize. Players, fans, coaches, and everybody. This is a hungry team. Their coach is an all offensive line coach. They've always been physical. They play with a lot of toughness, and I have a lot of respect for them. And that's how they play. And they have not had the success that they deserve. They lost 34-31 at LSU, had chances to win the game, lost by 1 touchdown last week at Ole Miss, lost a really close game to BYU. All right, so I am 100% in your camp of how good this team can be. And it's not a time for us to be complacent or focus on anything. But what's happening right now, what's in front of us right now in terms of the team that we're playing and how we need to go out and play to play well against this team. And this is a well-coached team now. They're a tough preparation. They do a lot of good things on offense and to utilize the players they have, including this quarterback, who is a really, really good player. And they're playing much better on defense and much more aggressive. They're bigger. They're more physical than they have been in the past. All right, so this is a very challenging game. And, I appreciate you letting me know what everybody's saying out there because I don't really listen to it. Not that I don't want to. I just don't get involved in it. I try to stay focused on, what we need to do to try to get the outcome that we want to have. And and I always think it's going to be a challenging game. I always have a tremendous amount of respect for the other team, the other coaches. Try to stay technically involved in what we have to do to be able to have success against them. But I'm with you. I'm 100% with you. There is nobody in our camp, none of our fans, nobody should have any expectations that this is not going to be a tough game and that we're all going to have great energy and enthusiasm in supporting our team and trying to get the best out of our team so that we have the best opportunity to get the outcome we want.
Complacency. You use that word there, and you're the best I've ever seen at stomping that out. What's the key to that? Let us inside, because have your team ready to play. And it can easy to fall into that trap, right? You just want a big game. Everybody, like the caller said, is telling you how great you are now, already putting you in the SEC championship game. And you've done this for decades. What's the key to that for people that don't know? How do you stomp that out and keep your team focused on the task at hand, the next opponent?
Well, because success can be an enemy to us all. Because when you're successful, it's human nature to think I should be rewarded. I deserve an opportunity to get a day off. I should get a trip to the Bahamas because I sold this many cars. I mean, that's human nature. I did well, so what do I get for it? Right. All right, well, you did well. You won one game. All right, so at Texas A&M, and now you got another challenge. So you can't allow this lack of energy to persist because you're complacent and you're not paying attention to detail, you're not preparing correctly. You know, these things that I talked about in the beginning, all right, which was, having poise, confidence, and execution. Where do those things come from? Those things come from having great preparation, which means you have good energy throughout the course of the week in terms of how you're preparing, because you're going to get reps on plays, but we can't rep every play against every call that we have. You know, you have to be able to be adaptable when the game comes to be able to make these things work against something that we didn't see before, or we didn't practice against that. But you can do it on principle because you're well prepared, you're confident, and because of that, you can adapt to it. And I think that players have to understand that. But, hey, we won 19 games in a row here twice. And we lost a game on the 20th game that probably we shouldn't have lost. And it was because of that. And it doesn't get you until it gets you, is what I always tell players. You know, it may take 3 or 4 weeks to really get you, because you're not practicing the way you're supposed to, you're not preparing the way you're supposed to. So instead of creating good habits, you're creating bad habits. And eventually those bad habits show up on the field, and that's when it gets you. All right, so, and you know, it's not easy for players. I mean, we've had tough 6 weeks. And, our players work hard, and it's psychologically difficult to raise your energy level and be ready to play and be your best performer every time you go out there and play. That's the challenge. That's what we're trying to get everybody to do. But that's not easy to do, and it's not really even human nature for everybody to think I'm going to go be my best every opportunity that I get. And I think that the big thing we fight is what these guys hear externally and how they are affected externally. You know, what people say. I mean, even, the guy telling me today, we're 20-point favorites. I don't think we're 2-point favorites. I just think about what we have to do to win. What do we have to do to beat the other team at play in and play out so we have a chance to get the outcome that we want. But that's what people hear, and that affects them psychologically in terms of, we don't have to worry about this, we just show up, and the other team's not going to, you all heard my speech about nothing.
Yes.
Yeah. Excellent, by the way.
I mean,
I love that.
You heard that. All right, so we're not entitled to nothing. The other team's going to give you nothing, and really the only thing that matters is that you do the best you can do, because nothing else matters. That's what you need to do. And that's what you can control. But, man, I'm telling you, these phones, social media, I mean, and people in this day and age, in this generation, they get a lot of positive self-gratification from what other people think. So you want people to be motivated internally in terms of what they want to accomplish, what they want to do, how much value they want to create for themselves by controlling the things they can control and doing it well, but yet all these things out here are affecting how they do what they do. Everybody, I used to say, don't look at the scoreboard. And everybody's like, this guy's nuts. Why would you play different if you're ahead by 14 points or if you're behind by 14 points? Why? If you want to be the best player you could be, why would that matter? Why would that matter? And I think that's the thing that's really tough to get everybody to understand. But it goes right back to that thing I said before. You're auditioning all the time. So people are looking at you and making opinions about you, and if you don't play well, that's the last thing in their mind. And that's what they think. And they're actually looking, you played in the NFL, they're looking for what? They were looking for reasons not to pick you.
Yep.
All these kids think, oh, I can catch 8 passes in a game and I'm in, like Flynn. No. We had a CIA agent that did background checks on every guy when I was at the Miami Dolphins to find out. We knew if guys, when they were a sophomore in high school, if they got in a fight in a bar. Knew everything about them. And made decisions based on their character because of some of those things as much as what they did on the field. So don't give anybody a reason not to pick you. But be the best you can be all the time as a person, as a student, as a player, and everything that you do. That's what we preach. That's what we try to do. That's how we try to keep them from getting complacent. But I'm telling you, we've been complacent before, and success can be a real enemy if you allow it to be.
Welcome back, everybody. Hey, Coach, on the Nick Saban Show, presented by Alpha Insurance. Protect your cars, home, life, and business with Alpha. Get a quote or find a local agent at alphainsurance.com. Well, gentlemen, we've had some wonderful conversations, some great lessons this evening. But, Coach, unfortunately, the clock says it's time for your final word of the night. So why don't we go to that? Brought to you by Mercedes-Benz. The vehicles are all electric. The feeling is all Mercedes.
Well, I think I said pretty much, on the guy's comments about, complacency and, fans not talking about this particular game. I think I would tell our team the same thing. You need to raise your energy level. Every game is important. This game is really important. Don't look at people's records. They are capable, a very capable team. They haven't had the success they deserve. They're a hungry team. They're a tough team. They're physical. And we got to have great energy and enthusiasm in our stadium with our players and with our team to stay focused and play the way we need to play against a very good football team. And that's got to be the mentality that we have. I'm talking about as an organization, as coaches, as players, as fans. Everybody involved in this organization is supportive, is positive, is doing everything they can to get the outcome that we want. And don't live your life in expectation, all right? Because as soon as you have expectations about something, you're always going to be disappointed when it doesn't work out the way you think it should, rather than just focusing on what you need to do to get the outcome that you want. And that's what we're trying to do with our players. That's what we want to do with our fans. And we need to create a great atmosphere for homecoming. These players have worked hard, and they need your support and your help to be able to continue to grow and develop as a group, as a team that can have success, because we can improve. It's the analogy that I used early in the week. If you bench press 180 pounds and your goal is to bench press 300, you don't stop and get satisfied when you're at 250. I can bench 250 now, so I'm happy with that. I'm satisfied with that. Nobody should be. All right, but everybody should be focused on what do I have to continue to do to get to 300 and have a positive attitude about it and be supportive about it. And I think that'll help our team more than anything anybody can do.
Definitely so. Coach, thank you as always for your time. Enjoy the rest of this busy weekend. I know you'll be involved with homecoming activities as the weekend goes, but thanks for your time. Good to see you.
All right, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks
Dusty. Appreciate
Absolutely.
you, buddy.
Thank you.
And Dusty, this has been a pleasure having you with us here this evening. It's a new experience for you, I know, coming in here not as a player but as a broadcaster.
It is. Like I said, 20 years ago, I was here as a player, and I can't wait to be in the booth on Saturday. It's the best program in college football, and it's the best coach that's ever coached in the sport. And to finally get a chance to be here, live it live. I had a chance to call y'all Sugar Bowl last year, but obviously that's a neutral site. That's a little different, so I can't wait. Homecoming, I know the crowd's going to bring it, and I agree with Coach. Look, don't let the record fool you. It's a good Arkansas football team that's coming to Tuscaloosa. He knows that. His football team knows that. I can't wait to see what transpired on the field on Saturday.
Enjoy the rest of the weekend here. Good to see you, Dusty.
Thank you, Eli. I appreciate it.
Thank you for being with us.